Senior living operators face a complex set of challenges. How do you stay ahead of the pack? Listen in to From Leads to Leases, a CCR Growth podcast for expert solutions that transform problems into opportunities. And maybe someday soon you'll partner with us to generate $1.5 million and up in additional revenue per community in just 12 months. Hey everyone, welcome back to From Leads to Leases, the podcast where we cut through the industry noise to bring you actionable insights into senior living marketing and sales. I'm your host, Jerry Vinci, CEO of CCR Growth, here to guide you through the evolving landscape of senior living. Today, we're diving into a topic that's crucial for anyone involved in the search for senior housing or care: the pitfalls of allowing your sales team to rely on referral agencies like A Place for Mom and Caring.com to fill your sales pipeline. We're going to unpack some unsettling truths and explore why these services might not be as trustworthy as they appear. Now, I know that anyone in senior living sales or marketing is extremely familiar with both of these referral partners, and I would bet see them as a necessary evil. However, my goal by the end of this episode is to shed a bit of light on why they can damage your community or brand's reputation, and hopefully convince you to look at some more reputable referral sources, or to at least not see them as necessary, or best case scenario, give you the confidence to consider direct marketing techniques to reduce your reliance on referral partners entirely. You might be asking yourself, are there reliable and reputable referral partners or commission-based placement agents out there prospective residents and senior living providers can rely on? Absolutely. And we'll actually be interviewing some of those in future episodes. So I'm not anti-referrals. And I do see value in establishing these relationships when they're not parasitic and dangerous. But even the best referral partners will tell you that referrals always come second to developing your own internal systems for lead generation and growth. They should complement your strategy in lead gen, not replace it. When referrals take the spotlight, your own marketing assets like your website lose value. Your ability to manage and maintain your reputation is in someone else's hands, and your effectiveness to produce reliable, consistent results, getting prospects from leads all the way to a move-in, is significantly impacted directly. Lastly, by relying on referrals, the cost of acquiring new prospects and moving them through the sales pipeline from leads to leases will cost a small fortune in referral commissions, plus sales commissions, plus extra time your sales team wastes competing with multiple communities, and an overall loss of brand value, identity, and relevance with prospects who become alienated and frustrated with the whole process of finding a new community to call home. For those of you who've been listening to the podcast for a while, you know this isn't the first time I've discussed the pitfalls of referral agencies, and I can promise you it also won't be the last. Everyone, industry-wide, should care about this issue because prospective residents and their families are frustrated, they're scared, and even angry at how unclear the process of finding a new community can be. Prospects are relying on and trusting that the sources of information used to make the right choice for housing are reliable, and it can and will affect the safety and well-being of residents long term. Earning and keeping residents' trust, especially when it comes to their safety, it should be a top priority for providers. Second to safety and well-being, these top referral agencies like the ones I mentioned are also decimating the efficacy and trust prospects have with internal sales teams, eroding profit margins for owners and operators, and allowing providers to sidestep the critical task of building their own direct lead generation efforts that'll produce better results, require less effort for the sales team to close, and cost less per move-in. The allure of referral agencies is huge, but it's not necessary, not a means to an end, and can lead to a negative outcome for prospective residents and their families. So the premise of this episode spawned from a recent article published by the Washington Post in May of 2024 that uncovered the dark and often overlooked truths about A Place for Mom specifically. And I'm going to talk about some of that here, but I've seen many of the same types of stories circling around Caring.com as well. In fact, I think Caring.com has an even worse reputation, or they just do a poorer job of hiding negative feedback than A Place for Mom. The article's title is Senior Care Referral Site, A Place for Mom Stays Mum on Neglect. I highly recommend you check it out for yourself. I wasn't going to run with this episode at all. I actually talked myself out of it a couple of times, but as time rolled on, I've asked more and more senior living professionals over the past few months if they were aware of this article, and most of them were not even aware the article existed or to the extent these particular referral agencies will go to place residents in facilities that are often delivering services and levels of care far below what's being advertised on the referral agency's website. So this has to come to light. And part of me thinks some providers just don't care. It's all about dollars, and that's unfortunate. I think that's one advantage of this podcast, though, and one of the reasons I hope you keep coming back. We're not afraid to talk about the hard things, to ask the tough questions, or shed light on the not so bright corners of the industry, because the only way anything gets better is if we raise awareness and then call for change. And I'm not someone who likes to point fingers, harp on the negative, or talk about everything that's wrong without also presenting some solutions. It's actually a huge pet peeve of mine and something I instill in our entire agency team. If you're going to raise awareness about an issue or problem, you should probably also present a solution or a way to improve what isn't working. So just know, I'm not here to present you with a challenge or problem without offering some suggestions on how to improve what isn't working. When it comes to referral agencies, I know there's a better way of doing things because companies like A Place for Mom haven't even been around that long. They started off small in the early 2000s. In fact, I think it was the year 2000 as a husband and wife team, and it's ballooned in size over the past 2.5 decades. Caring.com as well. It was founded in 2007, so less than 20 years in existence, and I doubt either of their initial goals was anything but to simplify the process of helping to find senior living and home care options for residents and their families with a personal touch, just like most referral agencies. The goal was to make it easier for families and older adults to weigh their options in one place instead of having to independently search and look at every possible community that might be a good fit for them and find some way to compare each one. The challenge with A Place for Mom is in the fact that over those 2.5 decades, they've grown in size, now boasting over 400 plus local experts to help families make the right choice based on their needs. I mean, in the US alone, there are roughly 4 million searches done every month related to senior care. A Place for Mom and Caring.com are getting roughly 20% of all that traffic related to senior living. Over 500,000 visits to A Place for Mom, and Caring.com isn't far off, though, with about 250,000 visits per month. So between the two of them, it doesn't leave a lot of room for individual communities to capture their share of the search market. Recent data puts the number of senior communities across all levels of care somewhere around 54,000 communities in the United States. It's no wonder that most visitors begin their search on referral websites and not the community websites if this much traffic is being diverted to the bigger players in the referral market. So, no surprise that when families begin the daunting task of searching for senior care homes, one of the first names that pops up is A Place for Mom. They claim to assist 700,000 people annually in finding the right senior living options for their loved ones, and they provide information on more than 20,000 senior housing and home care providers. Caring.com as well boasts that they've helped place more than 102,000 seniors into a community. Both agencies operate primarily as a commission-based referral service, meaning their services are free for prospects to use, which makes them super attractive to the end user, and they only collect a commission fee from the community if a resident moves in, which makes them super attractive to owners and operators who don't have to invest any money into marketing or advertising to drive leads and potential residents to their door. However, this financial model creates a significant conflict of interest. Unlike independent advisors who evaluate care facilities based on unbiased criteria, A Place for Mom's recommendations are influenced by the fees they receive from these facilities. I mean, it has to be. If an agent is paid a commission, who are they more likely to recommend? The community that nets a $10,000 commission or the community that nets a $1,000 commission. And while that might just sound like speculation or my assumption, as the Washington Post points out, more than 37% of the facilities that A Place for Mom most highly recommends have been cited for neglect or substandard care in the past 2 years, with some facilities repeatedly receiving such citations. It's a fact that these particular referral agencies do not independently verify the quality of the facilities they recommend. I know plenty of others who do, but not in the case of Caring or A Place for Mom. And you almost have to ask yourself why. Some online searches put their annual revenue somewhere between $25 million and $100 million. They have got to have some room in the budget to vet the communities they recommend. And if so, why aren't they doing it? The Washington Post conducted an in-depth interview of state inspection reports and found alarming discrepancies between the glowing recommendations on A Place for Mom's website and the actual conditions in some of these facilities. For example, facilities awarded the Best of Senior Living designation based on user reviews have been cited for serious violations, including neglect, inadequate medical care, and unsafe living conditions. In one particular tragic case, Inspired Living at Bonita Springs in Florida received a Best of Award in 2023, yet in 2022, state inspectors documented the death of a resident who was left unattended on a patio in extreme heat, resulting in fatal heat exposure. A few additional examples: Pacifica Senior Living and Story Point. These large operators had numerous facilities on A Place for Mom's Best of Senior Living lists, yet they were cited for severe violations. Issues range from medication errors and bed sores to staff misconduct and even infestations. The disparity shows a serious oversight in how these awards are given. These are just a few examples of the many facilities that have received high praise on A Place for Mom while failing to meet basic care standards. The discrepancy between the platform's recommendations and the actual quality of care highlights a critical issue in senior living: the need for transparency and accountability. Like I've already pointed out, but bears repeating, families rely on these platforms to make informed decisions. But when the information provided is skewed by financial incentives and manipulated reviews, it puts vulnerable older adults at risk. To make matters worse for A Place for Mom, another article was recently published in June of 2024 on NBC News and other media outlets that announced A Place for Mom is now under investigation by the Senate Special Committee on Aging for potentially deceptive business practices. The investigation again highlights the fact that while A Place for Mom claims to offer unbiased and no-cost recommendations for senior living facilities, in reality, they only refer families to facilities that pay them a commission, creating a huge conflict of interest where the best options may not even be presented to the families in need. The article also highlights the fact that only around 14,000 to 20,000 of roughly 50,000 plus communities available nationwide are even included in the company's network, which means families are not even seeing all available options and only being shown communities that have a financial arrangement with A Place for Mom. Another major factor that plagues A Place for Mom is the impact on families and costs overall. Most communities are paying at least the first month's rent entirely to A Place for Mom to cover the cost of commissions, but that cost is then passed down to the resident. Since communities now have to make up for an entire month's worth of lost revenue and sometimes even more. And by the time they're done paying commissions to referral agencies, plus commissions to their own sales teams, it can take anywhere from 2 to 4 months before the community will generate a positive return on investment in the form of monthly revenue from that resident. And if we're being really honest here, depending on the living options needed, some residents may not even live long enough for communities to generate any profit. This is a business after all. Most senior living communities are not government subsidized and are in business to make money. But partners like A Place for Mom drive up the cost for care, which puts an unnecessary burden on families as well as on the communities to make up those costs elsewhere, which makes the affordability of senior housing even more challenging. Again, this isn't a problem that's unique to A Place for Mom. They're in the crosshairs of every regulatory board and receive the lion's share of complaints due to the sheer volume of business they do. So if they work with 700,000 families every year, they must be doing some good. I'm sure if we looked at the percentage of happy families versus the percentage of unhappy ones, we would still see a majority of residents that were satisfied with their choice, or if not, we're not necessarily blaming a place for mom as the cause for their unhappiness. And at the very least, we can probably say that in most cases, their choice didn't end in catastrophe. So I'm definitely not trying to paint that picture or make you think that working with them is certain death. If it were, they most certainly would not be in business. But aside from them, Caring.com has an extremely poor reputation as well, and have been cited for many of the same types of biased predatory behavior, just like a place for mom. Here too, they've successfully placed over 102,000 seniors into communities, so I would imagine the majority are happy with their choice. So next, let's talk about manipulated reviews. Another real issue for both of these referral agencies has to do with the fact that sites claim to be built on transparency, but one of the most troubling aspects is how reviews are managed. For example, the Washington Post investigation found that reviews on a place for mom can be easily manipulated. Some staff members at senior living chains even admitted to encouraging fake reviews from friends and family. And others were advised by a place for mom to target residents and family members likely to leave positive reviews only. They were also told that if they notice a negative review, they should solicit positive reviews to push the negative review down the community's review list. These practices distort the reality of care quality and misleads families during a time that's full of making critical decisions. Referral sites make the reputation management issue even worse by recommending to their partner communities that reviews are left on their websites and not on the community websites or Google business profiles directly. Again, who benefits most from this? You probably guessed it, the referral agencies. The goal of every website is to show up as high in the search results as possible. The higher you rank, the more traffic you're likely to receive for relevant searches. And it should be no surprise that Google loves fresh content and a lot of it. So as a place for mom continues to get the lion's share of reviews from residents and families, their web pages for your community will continue to outrank your own website. In what world does that make sense? If they're your partner, why should their own webpage outrank your brand's webpage? It shouldn't. And the fact they push community sales teams and public relations teams to encourage reviews on their website because it helps the community rank higher simply isn't true. It helps your community rank higher on their website, but at the expense of your own website being pushed further down the search results page. Numerous reports have been made regarding the lack of negative reviews that show up on a place for mom or Caring.com and the difficulty of getting a negative review approved to show up on the platforms. In most cases, they'll often cite a policy that's less than clear as a reason for taking the negative review down or not posting it at all. The platforms also do not allow the reviewee the same opportunity to provide evidence to the validity of a negative review, and more often than not, they'll side with the community they represent, even if ample evidence is provided. Lastly, when it comes to reviews, there have been hundreds of reports of manipulated reviews. In the Washington Post article, one community is even mentioned for posting 40 positive reviews in one single day, and nearly all of them had the same exact subject line. Next, let's talk about lack of transparency and accountability. This is the last big issue worth mentioning for a place for mom and Caring.com. Neither agency provides state inspection reports in its community profiles, even when poor care has led to severe consequences or deaths. Instead, they encourage families to tour facilities and ask questions, placing the burden on families to uncover the truth. In some cases, this information is publicly available in as many as 28 states. However, these websites will only encourage families to research specific communities on their own or provide resources on where to find this information about state-specific regulations. In one of a place for mom's actual terms and conditions, in order to use the website, it states the company denies liability, saying the information on its website does not constitute professional advice. They actually state, and I quote, "We exercise no independent judgment as to the quality of, nor do we recommend or endorse any participating community," end quote. Again, how can they say that when they're only promoting senior living communities on their website that are actively part of the company's network of participating communities, which means these are the facilities that they make money from. They are absolutely endorsing and recommending those communities and not the other 30,000 plus communities who are not a part of their network. But while they do say that in their terms and conditions, A Place for Mom also openly states that they are, quote, paid by their participating communities if a family member moves into a senior living community, end quote. So the conflict of interest is as clear as day. You can't be unbiased when it comes to providing recommendations when, number one, you don't represent all available options as part of your network, and number two, when there is a cash reward for delivering a successful move-in to a community. Even the experts are weighing in. So just listen to what some people are saying about the experience. Richard Mollett, executive director of the Long-Term Care Community Coalition, has criticized this model, stating, "You are not helping people make good decisions. The emphasis on positive reviews and rewards without a thorough vetting process undermines the trust families place in these services." While he was speaking about A Place for Mom, the same can be said for Caring.com. Families are confused as well. In one example, Paula Anderson from Minnesota initially assumed that A Place for Mom is a nonprofit. The site's heavy marketing emphasis on being a free service to prospective residents and their families obscures the financial arrangements behind the scenes, leaving consumers unaware of the potential conflict of interest. So while I've spent a lot of time talking about A Place for Mom, there are some key points to mention about Caring.com as well. As the unofficial number 2 in terms of senior living referral agencies, I started digging into Caring's online reputation, and I came across a website called SiteJabber, which is a review website that connects businesses with customers around the world. So thus far, as of June 2024, SiteJabber has compiled roughly 90 reviews about Caring.com, which amount to a subpar rating. Their overall rating and assessment of Caring.com is as follows. Again, I quote, Caring.com has a rating of 1.6 stars from 89 reviews, indicating that most customers are generally dissatisfied with their purchases. Reviewers complaining about Caring.com most frequently mentioned assisted living and nursing home problems. So in total, that's 73 one-star ratings and 5 two-star ratings. Interestingly, there are 10 5-star ratings for Caring.com on SiteJabber, but out of those 10, only one was even talking about Caring.com. The rest were all talking about a specific community and how great it was. Alternatively, though, every single one of the 73 negative reviews were all talking about Caring.com and how bad their experience was with their team. An overwhelming majority of the reviews on SiteJabber accuse Caring.com of failing to publish negative reviews, even if they were truthful and even if they followed Caring's publishing guidelines. Here are just 3 examples. Scott Y talks about how reviews will greatly favor the community and states, quote, I tried to do a detailed negative review of a memory care facility that's on Caring.com's website. The facility refuted my claims, provided outright incorrect proof that my claims were incorrect, and thus Caring.com refused to post my review, end quote. Next, Jane D says, quote, Caring.com is the worst. They hooked me up with places that couldn't take my husband, despite the fact that I was quite specific about his needs. They had prices wrong. They created virtual visit appointments and then never sent credentials for the meetings and were unreachable on the day. In summary, incompetent representatives, baiting and switching, relentless email and phone contacts after being told to stop, and phone callers calling from different numbers, making it difficult to block, end quote. And lastly, we have Maria's review of their service. Quote, I received a call from Sarah, I assume the Caring.com representative, and she took my info, which she shared. We agreed on a budget, and people from many communities called and hung up on me because they were over my budget. She never called me back, but did send emails asking me which place I chose. I found a social worker that helped me choose a community that fits my parents' needs and is within budget. Caring.com didn't help at all. They just shared my phone number, but none of the info I provided about my parents' needs. I could have done that myself on the internet, end quote. On most of the reviews on SiteJabber, a representative from Caring.com did respond to try and refute the claims, but with so many negative comments all stating similar experiences, it's hard to ignore. Overall, there were three underlying themes. Number one, people trying to leave negative reviews that were rejected even though they followed the guidelines. Number two, improper treatment by Caring.com representatives during the placement process. Or number three, their team recommending facilities that provided substandard levels of care that led to health problems or in some cases even death of a loved one. So why does this all matter? Selecting a senior living facility is a life-changing decision. Families need accurate, unbiased information to make the best choice for their loved ones. The reliance on potentially manipulated reviews and lack of comprehensive inspection data can lead to a tragic outcome, as we've seen in numerous cases. The importance of understanding the pitfalls of relying on large commission-based referral agencies such as A Place for Mom and Caring.com can't be overstated. For senior living owners, operators, and executives, these agencies play a significant role in the industry and in filling occupancy for many senior living facilities, but their practices can have profound implications for the quality of care and financial well-being of residents. If A Place for Mom and Caring.com want to improve the experience for consumers and the services provided, they need to improve in 5 key areas. So number one, they need to increase transparency. Referral agencies should clearly disclose their financial relationships with the facilities they recommend. This includes making information about commissions and other financial incentives they receive readily available to families. Referral platforms should also lead with that information. And while the service is free to prospective residents and their families, they should also let those prospects know the arrangement of how they get paid up front. The same were to be true if I were to recommend any product or service and receive a financial kickback for your participation. For example, if I had an Amazon referral link to a product and I recommend that product to you, I should disclose that if you purchased a product, while it won't cost you extra, Amazon will pay a portion of the proceeds back to me for compensation for generating the sale. Number two, expand facility networks. Referral agencies should strive to include a wider range of facilities in their networks, ensuring that recommendations are based on the best fit for the resident rather than financial arrangements. If there are over 50,000 facilities nationwide, then most of them should be considered when looking at best fit communities for a particular resident. And maybe that means that referral agencies don't make a commission for every single placement, but we're not talking about putting someone into a car or selling them an expensive piece of jewelry. We're talking about putting someone's life in your hands. If you were an agent for a referral agency, wouldn't it be more important to ensure you were setting that resident up for the best possible outcome for their own personal needs? That should outweigh your financial gain or the company's financial gain. So expanding the network of facilities and the mindset around the business model should change. Number three, regular audits and accountability. Implementing regular audits of referred facilities to ensure they meet high standards of care and safety. There should never be a community that receives a Best of Senior Living badge that has a case filed against them or negative marks in their state inspection reports. These audits would help maintain the integrity of recommendations and protect residents from substandard care. In addition to audits, referral agencies should also include any and all inspection reports that are available from the state for each of the communities they represent. Transparency will go a long way. What incentive do these facilities have to clean up their act if they know they can still get glowing reviews and a Best of Senior Living badge while delivering substandard care? If all that were to disappear, their occupancy would tank, and they would either shut their doors or make some serious operational changes to the way they handle resident care. Number four, consumer education. Referral agencies should provide comprehensive education to families about evaluating and choosing senior living facilities. This includes understanding state inspection reports, where to find those reports, how to recognize the signs of quality care, and being aware of the financial implications of their choices. This should also include transparency in the review collection and reputation management. Referral agencies should allow more authentic commentary to shine through for their facilities. I mean, no one is perfect. And if most communities have high 4 and 5-star ratings on their websites, but low star ratings elsewhere, it's a clear indicator they are not being truthful about what residents and families truly experience. And lastly, number 5, ethical business practices. Encouraging referral agencies to adopt ethical business practices, prioritizing residents' well-being over profits. This includes avoiding aggressive upselling tactics and ensuring that all recommendations towards a particular community are in the best interest of the resident. This also ties back into transparent and honest communication about the community's reputation. If a referral agency is only concerned about placing a resident to collect their commission, but not considering that the community delivers a substandard level of service or care, then they should be held accountable for contributing to the mistreatment of that resident, because had it not been for their recommendation, that resident would have never chosen the community to begin with. And I know that's definitely a stretch, but accountability has to start and it has to stop somewhere. In any other instance, if someone were to recommend a business and that business harmed the customer, the person giving the recommendation would certainly lose credibility. And if that person knew in advance that the business was providing a service that could harm or has harmed others, shouldn't that person be partially culpable even if they didn't harm the customer directly? On some level, that makes sense. The sad truth is that the way a place for mom and caring.com currently position themselves, they get to provide recommendations, but without reserving judgment as to the quality of care a resident will receive. That, my friends, is left to families and residents to decide for themselves, but isn't it too late by that point? How might they do that with any degree of accuracy after they've already chosen a community, spent thousands on entry fees, buy-ins, and rent? Most people will stick it out for at least a little while in hopes that things improve because of the money they've already invested. So I hope this episode serves as a wake-up call to senior living providers. You don't need to use these referral agencies. Am I biased? Of course I'm biased, because I know there's a better way. And when one of these organizations is being investigated by the Senate Special Committee on Aging, clearly there's something amiss. There are plenty of independent advisors and other reputable referral partners who treat older adults with dignity and respect. And in fact, we'll be showcasing some of them in the very near future, I promise you. There are also ways to build your own direct marketing strategy so you can eliminate the need for referrals altogether. And I know this for a fact because we've done it for numerous communities. We've generated more leads and move-ins, a greater percentage of tours, cut sales teams' call times by more than 40%, reduced the time from lead to move-in, and cut the cost per move-in by more than 50%, all by eliminating referral agencies from the mix. Don't believe me? I've got the data to back it up. So just reach out and I'll be happy to show you those numbers. Today, we shed light on the unethical practices of large referral agencies like A Place for Mom and Caring.com. These agencies, while prominent in the senior living industry, have been under scrutiny for the deceptive practices, financial biases, and impacts on care quality and cost for families. Our goal is to empower you, the senior living professionals, to make informed decisions that prioritize transparency, ethical practices, and the well-being of older adults. We discussed how these referral agencies limit consumer choice, potentially leading families to facilities that pay commissions rather than those that offer the best care. We also highlighted the financial strain placed on families due to hidden costs and upselling practices. And by understanding these issues, you can better navigate the referral landscape and advocate for higher standards in the industry. As we continue to explore these critical topics, we encourage you to stay informed and vigilant. Let's work together to ensure that the senior living industry upholds the highest standards of care and ethics. Thanks for tuning in to From Leads to Leases. Please don't forget to hit that subscribe button, because we're giving you all these great senior living industry insights for free and asking nothing in return other than for you to like, subscribe, and share this episode with anyone who might find it useful. I'm your host, Jerry Vinci, and CEO of CCR Growth. Stay tuned for more insights, strategies, and stories from the forefront of senior living. Together, we're not just shaping the future of senior living, we're defining it. Until next time, lead with strategy and with heart. Chat with you again soon. Thanks for tuning in. Explore more at ccrgrowth.com. At CCR Growth, we've developed the Senior Growth Innovation Suite to unlock an additional $1.5 million and up in revenue per senior living community within a year. We specialize in generating quality leads, expediting sales, and reducing acquisition costs. Let's connect soon.